What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Top Podcast. I'm here with my boy Ruben. Ruben, how you doing, bro?
Good, man. I mean, I struggled from the flu for the last
Yeah,
2 weeks, bro. And then, dude, we hit it off so well when we had the live show, and then after that, it was like, goddamn,
that's
like
okay. That's okay. We're gonna get that momentum back. But as you can
for sure.
see, we're two-manning it today. Christian is in Cali right before the season's about to tip off, so hopefully he's having a good time. But today we're here to list and rank and tier a lot of the teams for this season. I think the one thing I'm really probably most excited about this upcoming season is one, we're only a few days away, baby.
Yeah,
I'm doing all my fantasy drafts today.
yeah. I did mine last night, bro.
But
I did
yeah,
my
who
fantasy
who
draft
who
last
who'd you
night.
get on your team? Yeah.
Okay, so it's our keeper league. So it's first of all, I gotta say this: if my cousin doesn't win our league this year, it's a travesty because he tanked all of last year and got
Oh, this is
all of
like
his picks.
Dynasty?
Yeah, so he got
Oh,
all of
okay.
his picks in the top six. So by the sixth round, he was done his draft, and the last player he took was Tobias Harris. Let me. I'm just giving you like his 12th man was Tobias Harris. Just giving you a insight into how deep
Okay.
his roster was. I think his eighth pick was like Nick Vucevic.
Do you guys play
So I'm telling
cat
you,
or points?
we play points league. So
Okay.
yeah, my team's not bad. I mean, I got a bunch of sleepers that I think are gonna be sleepers. Like Joel's my keeper.
Okay.
And then I took Jimmy. I have Zion. I got Fred. So I got a pretty solid team, but
Oh
I'm just
yeah.
saying,
Fred's
travesty if
gonna
my
throw
cousin does not
stats.
win this year.
Fred's
Yeah,
for
he
sure
will.
throwing
He for
stats.
sure will. So,
Yeah.
so tonight you got yours.
Yeah. I'm not. I got like the 11th or 10th or 11th pick in one, and then the other one I don't think we have our order yet, but I know I'm supposedly drafting tonight. But that one's a little more like was put together last minute, so who knows if that'll
We
even
gotta
pull
we gotta
through.
have a league. We should do a blacktop podcast fantasy league. Me, you, Christian run it,
Oh yeah,
and then
we got a
grab
bunch of homies we could pull into
yeah 9 other homies and throw in some money. We could either do a cat or a points. I don't know
for
however you
sure.
guys
I'm
feel.
down for that. Next year we'll figure that out. You know what's
Yeah, let's
crazy?
do that. For the
One
fans too. If the
last
fans want to
little
jump in, like,
fundies, last little aside. When I worked at Champs, I didn't participate in it, but I heard they have leagues where it's like you have like your buy-in, but then there's also like money you put in if you want to draft, say, Giannis. And it was like crazy, and others saying like, yeah, $500 if you want to draft Giannis, which I don't know
oh,
the
okay, guys are
validity of
bidding.
that.
Guys are bidding for players, eh?
Yeah, so it's like by the time the pot's probably grown to like I don't know some crazy amount of money, which I could never really like follow through with, but you
No,
know,
no.
nice
I
little
mean,
nice little 10 or a 20, maybe 50 at most, but
okay, yeah. Our keeper league is 100 this year. It's the first
100.
time we're hitting 100. We went from we did 20, 20, 50 last year. Then we're hitting 100 this year, and I think we're gonna try and slowly increase the pot a little more with more guys because like we have the same guys every year. So this is actually our second year in keeper. So it'll be interesting.
Are you
It'll be
doing
interesting to see.
winner takes all, or is it like second place you get to keep your money?
Yeah, so we're doing like third place gets to. So we were initially gonna do 900, then double, and then money back. But then we're like, that's kind of a heavy amount. So third place, double your money. Second place, triple your money. First place, take
Oh,
the rest. Yeah.
dang,
So
that's a good amount.
yeah, pretty good winnings across the board. Just help makes everyone, you know, stay committed, bro. Because that's the worst part about fantasy league
Bro,
when you start playing with
yeah.
dudes and they like leave halfway through the year and they
Oh
start
my
and
goodness.
then pick nobody up and it's like it's a free dub for the other guy. Like, come on, man.
Bro, yeah, that's probably the most annoying thing about fantasy. But anyways, let's get into it. Let's start with the Atlanta Hawks. Ruben, where you got them at this year?
I got them at a play-in team, honestly.
The
So
play-in?
if we're going by tiers, yeah, I'd probably have them at play-in. I
Okay.
mean, I like the collection of young guys that they have. They, little slight revamp of the roster, but I just don't see them being anywhere better than maybe the eighth seed or seventh seed this year.
Mm. Yeah, for me personally, I feel like they're due for some sort of resurgence. I definitely don't think it's gonna be to the level of that, conference finals run. But I mean, And what I've seen in preseason, Trae Young looks like he's kind of back for blood. I expect him to have a big year. And then now that they're kind of past all the John Collins drama, I feel like this is like kind of like a rebirth kind of thing for the Hawks because
Yeah.
you're having a full camp with Quinn Snyder. I think that DeJounte and Trey is going to look a lot better in the second year. And you got guys like AJ Griffin and Jalen Johnson who I think could be really solid bench pieces. So, I feel like their floor is a plan, but I wouldn't be surprised if they slot into that like 6th seed. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy.
Really?
I think they're due for a good year for sure.
Okay. Once we get through these teams, I can safely say that I don't think they're going to touch the 6th seed this year.
We'll see. 6 seed's like if everything goes perfectly, I feel.
Even then, I don't think. I think their perfect season is like a 7th seed. Okay. It's tough. I will go through it. I will go through it. I like this. This.
Okay. Celtics, I mean, pretty clearly a contender.
What? Blow it up, man.
You sure? I think the biggest thing.
Will be so pissed.
Yeah. The biggest thing I think is I want to see, not even just from a playing and counting stat standpoint, for more intangible sake. I think I really want to see Jason Tatum take control and be like, definitely not a leader to the level of like a Marcus Smart, but really see him take the reins, and as well as Joe Mazzulla. I think last year was kind of, you got away with a lot of stuff. It's because of the fact you had Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Robert Williams and Marcus Smart, and all these guys that are really high IQ players that can help bail you out at times. But now I think there's going to be even more of a microscope on them, which I think is a good thing. The Celtics are for sure geared to win like multiple games. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they're in that 60-win club for sure.
Yeah. I think 60 wins is where I think they'll be, because there's so much talent. I think this is actually quite a deep roster overall too.
Yeah.
We touched on it a bit. I'm excited to see what Peyton Pritchard does in an elevated role.
He's been hooping.
I know the question coming into it, like people are like, what are you talking about? Like a deep team, but I mean, across the board, like when you talk about getting into the playoffs, that's where it matters the most, right? I know we're talking about the regular season, but this is a team that has a very good 8-9 man rotation. And so, if you have a good 8-9 man rotation, which is typically what's going to be played in the playoffs, at the end of the day, like, they're so top heavy. They've got guys who are experienced, won championship with Drew Holiday. So I think this is a really, if I'll go on a limb a little bit to say that I would be surprised if Boston doesn't finish first this year, only because knowing Milwaukee, and this the best, like, there's a bit of a cruise in the regular season because that team is always going to be in the top 3. And I know that there will be kinks to figure out with Dame, because that's obviously a huge facelift for their roster as opposed to Boston. They're keeping their core guys and then they're introducing Drew into what they've already established. Same thing with KP. So I think this is I'll be surprised if they don't finish first in the East.
That's what I'm thinking too. I think from what I've seen in preseason, I feel like the first couple months are going to be a bit of a struggle for the Bucks in terms of just gelling together. Like, that's not to say they're going to struggle wins wise, but I wouldn't be surprised if, say, they're in a game with like the Magic, who are a really young, fun team and should be kind of blitzing through them, but because like everything's not fully gelled together yet, you might find yourself in like a last like 2-3 minutes to win the game kind of situation. But yeah, no, Boston I think is geared. They're ready for sure.
Yeah, I really like how Boston looks. I'm excited for them. They're actually gonna be a league pass team for me this year.
For sure. All right, throw in a team, Ruben. Who you want to talk about next?
Thunder, solid playoff team.
Okay, top 6. Let's hear it.
Yeah. I think they're ready. I think SGA is absolutely insane. I think just we saw him in the FIBA World Cup, but seeing him so far in preseason, there's obviously an aura to him at this moment, and he's projected to be a top 5 player this season. And just in terms of his stats, his impact, win percentage, that kind of thing, I don't know, man. I don't think that alongside like the continued growth of Josh Giddey, Like you obviously love the growth and the story of of Jalen Williams,
Mhm.
Lou Dort, who is one of the better two-way players in the league in terms of his ability to lock down the opposing team's best perimeter player. Chet Holmgren is a freaking
Man,
dude.
I saw
We talk about
Dame
Wemby sorry, I was just saying like we talked about Wemby all preseason, but Chet is dude. That dude looks good, man. He
seeing
looks
those two
good.
match up in that first or second
That was
preseason
fun.
game was, man. It was like there was a there was just this sense of like, man, if I'm not like in the 6'6" to 6'7" range as a person, you feel like a little like, I don't know how I'd fare against these guys, but man, yeah, Chet's legit, man, for sure.
Yeah. And it's a really good team, like in terms of their roster. They're well built. I think they're really well coached as well. And I think SGA is gonna have another breakout season on top of the one he had last year.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I think again, solid playoff team as in they're making the top six, which means, if I were to be specific, I say they hit the sixth. They could hit the sixth seed in the this year. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
yeah,
But Chet looks like a home run. Like I think like
definitely.
Wemby, those two are going to be contributors right off the bat.
I think that's going to be like a neck and neck matchup that we're looking at for like the next decade plus, hopefully, for sure. I
Yeah.
think one thing I will say though is I think the one thing would kind of set them apart and really jettison them into that next like arena would definitely be picking up like a solid vet like wing or something. And they have
Hmm.
all the assets to do it because looking at their team, I think a guy like Trey Mann, he's not going to get a lot of burn, but if I'm a team that's like whether you're looking to add to your bench scoring or even want like somewhat of a young piece to have for like your rebuild, he's definitely a guy I'm looking at. Same with like Usman
Yeah.
Jiang. There's just so much talent, so many assets as well. Have you seen like those tweets that talk about like all the picks they have?
Yeah.
It's like enough to assemble like 3 teams or something. So I think what we're gonna look at in the next few months or so is if a team starts to struggle, playoffs look a little shaky. If they have a veteran there, I think OKC should definitely look at like potentially getting into the mix of that for sure. Yeah, top six for
I,
sure.
I I'm gonna throw in I think their X factor is actually like I think Davis Bertans is gonna be massive for them.
Mm,
Like I think he's going to be massive for them in the sense that like he is a guy who's kind of been around the ball, like he's been around the league a little bit. He's obviously been a contributor everywhere he goes. And I think his spacing is going to be massive
yeah,
for a
him and
guy like
Isaiah
Chet
Joe
because,
are gonna be really
yeah,
good.
him and Isaiah Joe are going to be awesome off the bench. There, don't forget about our good man Oku. So this is going to be a nice team. There again, I'm choosing the Thunder too because I think they're going to be a fun league pass team plus a problem all year.
For sure. For me, I'm a I'm gonna just start it right here. The Chicago Bulls need
Yeah,
to
yeah,
blow
please.
this shit up, man. It's just so sad. I mean, it's like 3 guys who are super lovable amongst the league. I don't think anybody hates Zach Levine. I don't think anybody hates DeMar Vooch. But the thing is that this team has like run its course. I mean, I think they're all kind of holding on to that idea of like, well, Lonzo is definitely like a big hit to like
Yeah,
their team, but they're just all really holding on to the fact like, I mean, when we were healthy, we were first. But that was also like less than 20 games or something along those lines. So
yeah.
I I just I just don't see an avenue for them to either be like where they want to be or to a point where they can suck enough to get like a big lottery pick. So I definitely want to see them like unload on a bunch of their assets for sure.
Yeah, if I were to take a step back on the Bulls, like this roster and this core, the thing that I think they might be like the biggest what if kind of team in
Yeah.
like maybe the last 5 or 6 years because Lonzo does everything that feels like we already know that Chicago is going to be a high powered offensive team in terms of talent. But what Lonzo does is he sets those guys up. He's obviously a great point of attack defender. He's got size. He's got the ability to rebound as a point guard. So he fills every slot. Like you look across different teams and like the most successful teams, there's always the garbage guy who's good at doing everything.
Mm.
You look at the blue collar guy, the gel player. right? You can
He's
go as
really
far
improved
back
at
as
spacing the floor too.
yeah, well, exactly. And so that's the thing is like he's a point guard that can do it all. And he was the catalyst, quite frankly. I think he was the most important player to the Bulls in terms of their
For
success
sure.
versus, we talk about the three guys who have been all-stars. There's if you think about it, this team is actually in some ways a super team because you have three former all-stars on that, three current or former all-stars in that club. You have a guy like Pat Williams who looks like he's going to come into his own. You have Alex Caruso. You have all these really nice pieces that you would think individually they'd play well together, but without the guy that the glue, right? It's really hard to hold things together when you don't have, you know, that thing that hugs them into one piece. So, yeah, I think it's about time to blow. I just don't think they don't have a year to wait, man. They don't have a year to wait for Lonzo to come back. I think you just let it go. Keep Lonzo moving forward and then see what you can get back and build around that.
For sure. I mean, I think who do you think is really safe on this roster? I think it's really only
Pat
like
Williams?
Pat Williams and Zach maybe,
I
depending
don't
on
think so.
what you get back for him.
That's true. I mean, I think he's gone too. I think he's gone too. Because I think in terms of your return, Zach's contract is actually quite tradable. Same with DeMar's. And there's two reports that saying that DeMar, if he doesn't get an extension done, that he could be a trade candidate this year, depending on where Chicago falls in the standings by that time. So that's interesting. Like that's a huge that's a ripple effect across the league. Same thing with Vooch. I think he's a tradable guy. But at this point in his career, I think if he were to get traded, he'd probably be a backup big. Just considering the landscape of bigs now across the league. But yeah, I think the only safe guy is Pat Williams. Maybe Kobe White.
I don't know if I
Maybe
read the
Kobe
report
White.
right, but I heard he wants something that starts with 2.
That was Pat Williams.
Yeah,
that's Pat Williams.
That
yeah, I mean, 200 million. Because it said it wasn't 20. He said it started with a 2 and it's not 20. So I'm feeling it's a $200 million extension across 6 years or something like that, which is insane.
That's like he's got to put up like a 25-3 kind of season. Even then, I don't know if he.
Yeah, he's got to be damn good this year if he's going to demand those numbers. Mm-hmm. So,
all right, throw out a team, Rube.
You know what? Let's talk about the good old Toronto Raptors.
Oh yeah, I was wondering where you gonna put them. What you thinking?
Solid playoff team.
Whoa!
I've got them at 6. I've got them at 6. I've got them at 6, and that's the reason why I say that. I'm gonna try and put my bias aside, even though that's obviously impossible. The reason why I fought so hard against that Hawks idea of them being 6th is only because
you want the Raptors to be in there.
So take a look at this, right? Like think about this. Prior to last year, Toronto was the 5th seed in the 2022 playoffs, and much of that roster is still here. And I think a lot of the reason why they didn't gel last year were a lot of internal things. I think Scottie being injured going into the 2023 season unhealthy didn't help. Pascal missing a lot of time. This past season, he missed like a bunch of games up until the All-Star.
Until like December, right?
Yeah, so he missed a lot of time. There were a lot of injuries last year. A lot of there were a lot of things they had to face. There were a lot of hurdles to overcome, and yet this team was still, what was it, a 9 seed? I think they were still a 9 seed this year. No.
Yes. Yeah.
Or were they? Yeah, they were a 9 seed.
That was the DR DeRozan game.
Yeah, the DR, every free throw. But I say 6 because of the fact that this team with the same core was a playoff team 2 years ago. Now, I know the argument that okay, well, this team is not the same as the past. Like, you can't use the past as an indication for the future, but sometimes you can. Because this team, currently in preseason, I know preseason is nothing, but they clearly have bought into what Darko Rajakovic is selling. They're playing a very similar style offense that Denver runs with a lot of high post action, a lot of DHOs, And considering their lack of space, it works because ball and body movement will get the defense reacting either way. So just, you know, to sum this up a little bit more, Toronto is a very good team in terms of talent. I think the system will allow them to be more efficient. I think Pascal clearly looks like he's having to exert less energy than he has in the past 2 seasons because the ball isn't in his hands as much as it used to be. So he's much more efficient. I think Scotty going into this preseason looks like an animal.
For sure.
He looks like a completely different player. Gary looks great off the bench. Again, Jalen McDaniels, man, that was a massive pickup, and he looks really good for
Super
Toronto.
nice. Yeah.
Otto Porter's back. Grady Dick is catching rhythm. I don't know if he'll be part of the rotation early on, but he looks really good so far. He's doing the right things. And I never thought I'd say this, but Malachi Flynn looks like a rotational NBA point guard.
Oh man.
So and again, like this team, they're gonna run 10 deep. They have more than 10 deep guys that are capable NBA players. So I think if everything goes right, this team is my 6th seed in the East. Dennis Schroeder looks really good, by the way. He looks really good. So I know that there's a lot of things about Dennis Schroeder that people could talk about him in the NBA, but we've never really seen. Oh, actually, seeing him in a lead guard position. The last time I saw him play this good or this impactful was when he was with Oklahoma City, and that was when he was a massive contributor. So I'll leave that up in the air for everybody else to take in, but I like what I'm seeing so far.
Respect. Okay, I can get behind that. Alrighty, let's go. The Knicks, man.
Wow, yeah.
I think if there's a team, because you're talking about the Raptors getting into the playoffs as a top 6 seed, as well as like how much the landscape already is shaped by like a Boston, Milwaukee, and a Philadelphia and a Cleveland. I think that the Knicks are a team that they didn't do enough this offseason, I'll say. I think, you have all the cool publicity of the Villanova crowd. That's cool. But when it comes to the bare bones of it, they don't really have like a solid third guy. Like when you go through all these top teams, they have at least 3+ players.
Evan Fournier.
Evan Fournier, man. That brother thinks he's in prison and he's making $17 million. Respectfully.
Yeah, brother. But I'd love to be in prison making $17 million. Let's be real now.
Oh God. But, even just to be, if you want to be superstitious, we're looking at Julius Randle. Good season. Crap season. What did he have last year? A very good season. So, I'm that's not to me to say that's my full rationale, but I just think that a lot of their moves were very lateral. Again, you have all the Villanova stuff. That's cool. Quentin Grimes does look good. I can see him kind of supplanting RJ Barrett as the third option. But I just think that when it comes down to it, they don't have enough sort of it factor or star power to, I think, really get them into that like upper echelon, that top 6 kind of seed with the Knicks and the Raptors as well. I would take the Raptors over the Knicks at this point. I think, the Raptors play a lot more kind of together basketball. Granted, the Knicks have like a true connector in Jalen Brunson for the first time in like, when even was the last time they had solid like point guard play?
Jason Kidd about a decade ago.
True. And even then, Jason Kidd was like old Jason.
He was 37. Kidd. He was 37, man.
For
he was
real.
37.
Same. They had like Raymond Felton too, I think, in that roster. But I just think that with how good the league's getting, you got a young Orlando team that I think is going to be on the come up. All these young teams that are really going to be trying to pie for some like competitive basketball. I think New York is going to get into some dog fights. They're going to win some of them, but I think they're also going to lose quite a few. So for that reason, I think they're going to be a play-in team. I think they're a team that comes out of the play-in, but yeah, I see them falling out of that top 6.
Yeah. When your big acquisition is Ryan Arcidiacono, I think you taking a step back.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Nothing more to say about the Knicks.
Shout out to my boy Dante, though. Got
It's
left
not an
without
interesting
Dante.
team to me. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, obviously they added Dante, but it's again, like you said, lateral. Not an interesting team to me this year. I will say, small thing. As much as he's a Canadian, I think this is RJ Barrett's last season to really separate himself from the pack of mid-average rotation NBA player to
Yeah,
like someone you can invest in. So I think he's gotta have a big year, man.
definitely. And not even just from like accounting stats. He just needs to be more efficient.
Yeah,
That's his big thing.
he's gotta be more impactful. I think there's too often or not like he's just kind of a guy that's there putting up counting stats, and so there's got to be some impact, and he's got to find his niche in the league.
Alrighty, just to kind of speed things up a little bit, let's
I
like
think
let's cut out our
Denver
clear
contender.
contenders. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if there's anything, Payne and Watson, I'm excited to watch. But anytime you have a team with Nikola Jokic, good things are gonna
I think they
happen.
took a step back though, losing Bruce Brown, but they're a
Mm.
contender for
But I feel
sure.
like Christian Braun's a
Um,
guy that can like fill that hole pretty nicely.
yeah,
I think it's similar to
yeah,
where they might struggle to begin the season, but you know, again, whenever you have Jokic, I think Jamal Murray 1 year fully removed from the injury. I think
yeah,
he's going to take another step. Could potentially be like a first time All Star. Still got Aaron Gordon. If
great.
MPJ could still get some back of that magic from a couple years ago, they're in great shape for sure. Suns obviously. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, man. I like Yusuf Nurkic with this team,
I do too. I do
man.
too.
They because like their thing is like I forgot it might have been Gil's Arena or something, but they're saying that they don't need like a traditional point guard because they have three guys that can literally be their own kind of offense. What they really need is sort of a connector, and I
And
think
that's
Yusuf
Yusuf
Nurkic is
Nurkic.
for sure that. I think he's a guy that he goes from being like kind of that third, maybe fourth-ish option to where you don't even really have to worry about getting your own, whether it's like tip-ins or the fact that the defense is collapsing in on the three guys. He's gonna have his opportunity to get his points, but where I think he's really gonna make his bread is being like that connector for sure.
Yeah, I like that. Yusuf looks good in the preseason so far. They've played off a lot of him on the high post, and so that high post DHO action with three guys who are fantastic, with the ball on the move in the mid range, that's gonna be hard to stop, man. Devin Booker
Yeah,
said it. I think like he's also got potential meme worthy to be the new
that's
I'm
what I
fine in
was
the
gonna
West.
say.
So
We're fine in the West.
I was like, this guy says like, who's gonna guard us? And to watch OG Anunoby, like Scotty Barnes and Pascal, shut them all down.
Oh
So
my
I'll just be
goodness.
real with
I
y'all.
think yeah, they would match up well.
Um, yeah, Suns are contender. You know what? I'd throw the Warriors in there,
Okay.
truthfully,
I mean,
because again,
whenever
health.
you have Steph,
Yeah, whenever you have Steph, man, I think they're fully healthy. This whole Draymond.
Draymond's gonna miss like I think just a couple weeks though. No,
Yeah, I mean, regardless of this team, they have Chris Paul as that connector right now, and he
mm-hmm.
looks really good with them.
I
So
can I
I'd slot
cannot
him there.
wait to see the second unit with Kuminga and Moody and Chris Paul. I think that's gonna be something that really pushes those guys over, like from like being young but outside of the playoff rotation to where you're relying on some solid minutes from these guys. And I mean, Kuminga looks like a monster.
Yeah,
I think he's
he
really
looks great.
kind of almost like regained a sense of purpose within that lineup. It feels because I mean, man, he's looking good. The rest of that team looks good. The second unit, I think, it's something that's like I think been overlooked when you come to look at like these Golden State Warriors. Like, we always hear about the Stephs, the Clays, the Draymonds, the KDs, but we forget sometimes, at least some casual that will say, you forget about the Sean Livingstons, you forget about the Mo Spates, the Iguodalas, which congrats to Andre, just retired.
Yeah,
But man, I think they're really poised to like regain respect. It feels
yeah, agreed.
for sure.
Let me throw one here for you. Philly, solid playoff team. Cavaliers, contender.
My brother, I'm clicking on that.
Yeah, I like Cleveland. I said I wasn't sure how I felt about Max Strus and Georges Niang feeling like they're the big guys now. But then after you're watching them a little bit in preseason, just the ability to space the floor just a little bit more for them. Just the ability to defend some positions, be a glue guy, be a reliable contributor on a nightly basis. Just that, what, like you say, like connector is, I think, the key word of this podcast, of this episode today. Because as we break through these teams, it's like trying to understand the difference between last year and this year, that kind of thing. And so we talk about it across these teams. Cavaliers have some connectors now that allow, that plug in holes that they had in their roster last year, to be
Yes,
like, okay, I think this team has answered and addressed a few of those things. I think Cleveland is a top 3 team coming into the East.
for sure. I mean, you gotta respect that team because I think they
Yeah.
addressed their big hole. You know, I love Karis LeVert. I mean, we all do, but he's just a little. He doesn't fit that mold of you need a guy that can catch and shoot and defend. And they got two
It's better
very
coming off the
solid
bench.
options. Yeah, I think that bench is going to be really good as well. Whether it's
Yeah.
Niang, you know, Karis is still there, and I feel like Amani Bates is going to play his way into not like crazy amount of PT, but you know he's going to show up in spot minutes, and I think gets you a quick like 5 or 6 points.
Yeah, and don't forget about Ricky Rubio. I think he's an NBA
When he
contributor on
gets
any
back,
level that he
yeah,
goes to. Yeah, so I think like he's going to be there. I mean, just taking a look at their roster now. Um,
Evan Mobley, man.
yeah.
I think he's
Evan
due for a good
Mobley.
year.
I mean, obviously they managed to still hang on to Isaac Okoro. Dean Wade was obviously a really good contributor for them last year.
Yeah,
Again, 8-9 man rotation, very solid. They look really good, and internal development with Evan Mobley again. Donovan Mitchell, we know that he's a special talent on the offensive end. So I think this is a contending team. They
this
have
is
all
a
the
good
pieces.
good team for sure. All right, let's get some little wannabes here. Brooklyn. I love Brooklyn. I think their makeup is very good, but I do think, if anything, they'll be like a bottom tier play-in team. But I think more so, will the whole allure and the magic of Mikal Bridges. Not that it'll wear off, but you know he's not putting up 26 for a year. You know, there's the footage on him. I think the only thing, I think it's very similar to that 2019 team where they're going to be very fun to watch. But, you know, the only thing keeping them from being a lottery team to I think a solid play in thing is Ben Simmons. As much as
Mm.
like I really hope that Ben Simmons can get it back together, it's still like a lot to really put your stock into, I'll say.
You got to see it. I think
Yeah.
you've got to see it before you really believe it, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
The preseason, you know, if Ben plays like that, hmm, pretty solid. But you know, Ben Simmons has got us before. The off
Yeah,
season workout vids, he's a merchant for that. But I, I I think they'll be like a top defense though. I'll give them that much. I think the offensive side will be a little bit of their biggest hole. But I mean defensively you got Ben, Spence, you know, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Nicholas Claxton, I think, was a guy that really, really flourished last year, and I think that'll be another continuance for sure.
agreed with that.
And this Cam Thomas season, man, I need to see. Cam Thomas is gonna finish. Here's my little hot take I'll insert for this year. Cam Thomas is going to finish top 3 and not 2 or 3 in 6th round of the year voting this year, man.
Behind Gary Trent Jr. and
Gary's another guy I think could get slot into that for sure.
yeah, thank you. I was
Yeah,
just trying to do that little plug right there.
I
Um,
respect that.
I'm gonna throw Miami into the play-in.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. They just lost way too much to like Constantine.
Yeah, they didn't address any of it.
Man, I love Jimmy. I love Jimmy.
They got worse.
But yeah, you lost like 2 of your
And they were
biggest
playing team
players.
last year.
Yeah. Yo, is
So,
it crazy to really think that they can miss the playoffs like entirely?
no, I don't think so. I mean, again, I think health was their biggest issue last year for a
Yeah,
reason
true.
why they were this bad. And I think they feel okay losing guys like Gabe Vincent and Max Struess because Hero's back fully healthy. But again, like what those guys meant to that team and that culture on both ends of the floor is something that can't really be replaced unless you have guys that, we're great defensive player, or not great, but obviously we're very good defensive players, guys who can spread the floor, who are, um, the ability to impact outside of counting stats. Tyler Hero's never been seen as that guy, right? And so
Mm.
it'll be interesting to see how they play this year. Again, you can't count out Jimmy, but that team with the guys they lost last year was a play-in team, regardless of injuries, right? And so most of the time, the really good teams can withstand massive injuries unless it's like, their best player sitting out 65, their best player sitting out 35 games because he started waving his gun around.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't see it with Miami this year.
I will say, if there's any kind of silver lining, I think Jovic is a guy that a lot of people are going to have their eyes on just based on the Gold Cup that he had. But then
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Jaime Jaquez as their pick. I'm a UCLA guy, so seeing him flourish these past couple years has been great. The man's dope. He takes 8 steps and turns it into 2. Gotta respect that.
Yeah, yeah, you got it.
But
I
no,
think
he
they look good.
does possess like a solid face-up game. I feel, and it's gonna be something that really shows his value for sure. All right, let's go. Let's get these bottom teams out here. I think Charlotte's gonna be fun
Blow
to
it up.
watch.
I would say even blow it up, man.
Oh,
Because
really?
blow it up. Well, outside of LaMelo, they've got guys. They've got half that
Okay.
team has mugshots right now.
Or very down bad. Shout out to PJ Washington.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, Miles Bridges, freaking, James Booknight. I mean, these guys have all these guys have mugshots. Miles Bridges needs to be out of the league, man.
Yeah, that's the one I'm not
Sorry.
really like. I love Miles. Like he was looking really good like the other year, but yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, get him out the league, man. Like, there's no place for that.
I will say though, Brandon Miller looking pretty good.
Yeah, he's got a mugshot too.
even before he made the league.
And the guy's going into a defense case already about like wrongful wrongful
that.
death. It's insane. Oh my god. I don't know what's going on with the Charlotte Hornets. They seem to have a type, man.
LaMelo deserves more than this.
Yeah, I think he's gonna ask out at some point. I think he's asking out of Charlotte. I wouldn't be surprised if he does, to be honest.
Where would he go, you think?
Anywhere but Charlotte, bro. I think at this point, I'd rather play for Washington than Charlotte. Jeez.
Oh man, can you imagine?
Him and Jordan Poole?
LaMelo is a. Hey, listen, they're each gonna get
fun.
30. For sure, they're each gonna get 30. But they're giving up 50 on the other end.
That's true. That's true. I think they'd play off each other.
I think it could work, but then I do think that like, unless you got a Mikal Bridges or all these crazy defensive players, it's gonna.
Well, Koulibaly looks good.
Koulibaly does look good, but even though I'm not blowing up,
I think he's a future all defense selection. By the way,
he does look good.
He looks good
for sure. Jordan Poole.
Yeah, I was gonna put Wizards lottery.
When you put him up against a Hornets or maybe even a Utah or an Orlando, he's gonna look solid.
Like the New York Knicks.
OG had 41 him in hell yesterday. Oh my goodness, bro.
That was fun.
How do you go from 49 to what do you put up? I think he only put up like 4.
He's 1 for 15 from the field.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was on 15 shots. That is insane.
Yeah. Toronto's defense is
Washington's gonna be fun to watch, I think Kuzma is gonna have a very solid year and improve his stock to where I can see. I do hope he finds his way onto something like a Sacramento or even like any other.
Could have just signed there, dude. He could have just signed there
for sure.
I mean, sure, if he took a smaller dollar amount and maybe less guaranteed years, sure, but like, dude, play yourself onto a winning situation, you'll be happier.
Yeah. But he's a guy I think we'll see have people calling for his name and during the trade deadline for sure.
Yeah. I got after we talked highly about them, but I'll throw them into lottery. I think Blazers are on the lottery this year. I would say the same thing about
fun
Detroit
to watch for sure, but
yeah. These are league pass teams, right? Like league pass teams, but Detroit and I think just very young cores.
For sure. Where do you see Cade like flourishing, or where do you see his points at or his stats for the season?
Well, I feel like Well, I definitely see him being a 20 guy this year. I mean, he almost has to be, right? I think he's the clear number one option on that team, and he's also going to control the offense alongside uh, Jaden Ivey.
Jaden Ivey is another good could. It's gonna take a while, but he's gonna be another solid 16.
He's going to be very good. So yeah, I think Cade is a 20-7 guy this year. I'm hoping for it. I'd like to see him rejuvenate the conversation around him as the number one pick. Yeah.
Nope. All right. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Man, Victor is for fucking real, bro.
He's real.
I was trying to be very hey, take it easy on the guy. He's young. Don't let us get too fooled. But bro, he is.
See against the Warriors last night,
bro. I felt, man. How would you feel if you're Wiggins? You're 6'7", so you're not like a Chris Paul and you're 6 feet even. You're 6'7". You're a big dude, and this 7'3", 4'5" monster is able to keep up with you step for step, and still block your stuff. Like, it wasn't even the fact that he had to rely on his length, but he was able to keep up with him. So
you've seen the video of him doing defensive reactions with that small dude.
Oh yeah, with the coach. He's got quick hands.
God.
Yeah.
He's got quick hands. He's got quick feet, and you see his flexibility too. You know the guy can do full splits, which means his lateral quickness with his hips. He can open his legs wider, and then he can react faster, and he can turn. So it means like the guy's flexibility is going to be massive for him moving forward. And I hope he doesn't put on too much weight, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly, I think he only maybe needs like 20-30 pounds, even that.
I don't even think that I think that's a lot already. I think if he were to add just solid muscle, not so much weight, I think keep his body composition, but just allow him to improve like strength and be able to take resistance at the rim, that kind of thing, being pushed around in the post. Yeah. Like, you could train your muscle memory to do those things, and so that's like little things that you can train on. But I hope he keeps that, like, his composition, man, because it's what makes him unique.
Man, the jelly was kind of what like put it over the top for me.
Yeah,
that jelly was so nasty. God. Oh my goodness, bro. But no, even outside of Wemby, that's a solid roster they got around him. I think Keldon Johnson is a good like motor guy. Devin Vassell is a very big sleeper. I feel he's a guy that's definitely poised for not even just having the breakout year, but continuing. Yeah, definitely. And Sohan at the point, I kind of like that. It's a big lineup for sure. I think that's mainly what Pop was going for. And even when you look at the bench, you still got guys like Trey Jones is going to be a good connector for that second unit. Blake Wesley and Malachi Branham aren't slouches either. They've just got a lot of guys that could contribute. And when you pair that with the guy that's looking as generational as as Wemby's looking, when you pair that with like potential like really solid number 2 in Devin Vassell, and how could I even forget this? You're having all these guys coached by like undoubtedly the greatest coach of all time. It's hard to really think they can't do like. Now I don't think they'll be like an 8 or 9 seed. I think or 7th or 8th seed. I think they'll fall into that 9th or 10th. But I think they'll for sure be playing meaningful basketball this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to be flirting with around 40 wins this coming season. Just simply of the fact that Wemby is such a. How do you scout for a guy like that?
You can't.
That's why. And that's the problem. And they're going to win games simply on the fact that teams won't know how to answer for him on both ends. Because, you can't typically just say, oh, we're going to play an outside game. We have to shoot the ball well against the guy because he's going to close the paint. Can't do that because he can guard your best perimeter player. And that's the freaking problem. When the guy is like 5 steps back of you for a wide open shot and can still catch your shot in midair, that's the thing you can't necessarily scout for. And so you have to learn how throughout this year, to scout his game and to make a game plan. But there's going to be a lot of learning curves for teams because watching the Warriors against him was quite fun. It was honestly really funny.
Yeah, the Golden State, that's a team that's like undoubtedly your barometer for how your team's able to do against good defenses. Granted, no Draymond, but man.
Well, not even good defenses. It's the offensive part because, you would think that the Warriors are a team that could exploit a team again, we're talking about preseason, so it's obviously that we're not talking about the most meaningful basketball, and a lot of guys not putting in 100% necessarily. But given the culture and their style of play, it's one of the hardest teams to guard over the last decade. With their ball movement, their ability to cut through screens, obviously Steph, like the gravity that he requires, and a guy like Wemby is able to break everything up that they do
Yeah.
single-handedly, and so that is a problem. That is a problem. So I think the one team that Wemby might really struggle with is Denver. Um,
Yeah,
but
the size that Aaron Gordon and I think I'll
right,
throw the
exactly.
Raptors in there too. They got a lot of big
Yeah, I
guys.
think they're
So
yeah, that's true. I think the Raptors teams with length, but again, they don't have a lot of great shooting. So that's where Wemby can sit a little bit on guys. And so that's why I think Denver is the pinnacle of that because again, that's a really good perimeter shooting team from 1 to
definitely
5. And so, with the spacing and the ball movement and even the size, I think they're going to pose a problem. But again, we're going so far into detail about the Spurs. I think they're going to be fun to watch regardless.
for sure. Okay, last little fun question: who do you think is going to be the first person to block Wemby? Yeah, big question because I mean, this dude
I
can
feel like it's going to be
literally.
a wing player.
Mm,
I think AD, I'm going to say AD. I almost want to say AD. But I also think it could be a wing player coming from the weak side, like when he's catching it off a board, doesn't see it, guy comes behind, blocks him. Because he's so big, it's so hard to be aware of where he's at all the
yeah,
time. But also, he's a guy that can catch it and just go.
I
He's got
think
the Boban effect.
he's literally if Boban had like lateral quick.
KD,
Yo, honestly, yeah,
Boban and KD had a baby.
for real. I think Ben could do it. I think Ben Simmons could get that done. But let's move on from that.
Giannis
Giannis
too.
could too as well. Yeah. But speaking of, yeah, I mean clear contenders. I again,
Clear.
I think from now till maybe early December, it's gonna be a bit of a grind. Again, AJ Griffin. We there was like that weird thing about Terry Stotts and that whole fiasco, which is crazy when like you hear about it. It really wasn't that big of a deal, but like just the fact that you lose a coach, never really a good thing. But in the first few games I've seen, it's been solid, but I know it's going to get a lot better. I think game still needs to settle in a bit. I mean, when you play in one place for over a decade, there's going to be some growing pains to say the least when you go into a new situation. But it's Damian Lillard, top two at the very least point guard in the league right now. So got faith in him. Marjon Beauchamp is looking really well. I think this is a team where our young guys are going to play a big factor. Him and Andre Jackson look very good. And then even when you look at the whole bench, it's pretty solid. So, I think like you were saying too, I think they're a team that can take it a little easier during the regular season, which is hard when you have a guy like Giannis that's like in full go mode the whole time. But
Yeah.
I'm just excited to see how this team looks when everything's kind of fully set and everything's fully meshed together. So yeah, I'm excited for this year.
Um,
Let's
I know you're gonna have the Lakers there. Yeah,
yeah,
contender for
pretty
sure.
clear.
I think I'll be surprised if they don't finish top 3 this year.
Yeah, with all the depth.
Yeah, I really like what they have this year. Oh, man, I'm gonna go on a limb and say I think they make it back to the conference finals.
Yeah, I feel like the writing's on the wall that they're gonna be one
I
of
think
those
it's a
teams.
rematch of last year's conference
Mhm.
finals. Truthfully, so yeah,
I think
Lakers
either
look good.
that or I could even see them in Golden State.
True, yeah, Golden State. I'll give you one more team that I think can make it there. Sacramento Kings.
The conference finals? Really? So that means they go through either one of two or two of either Denver or Phoenix or the Lakers. Because they're for sure gonna if they because I think they'll be a playoff team as well. but they're going to be like a 6th or 5th seed. I feel
Took the Warriors to 7 games last year.
true, but
I
that was
I
without
like
Wiggins.
them.
Really.
Fair, but I still think this team is. I think this team is really good. Again, we're
Mhm.
playing apples to apples because I think the West has multiple contenders versus
Definitely.
the East. So I think they're there.
Yeah, I'm not making the argument to say I'm against it,
No,
but
true.
yeah,
I get
I
you.
like Sacramento's makeup. I think this is kind of the
They're my
year.
sleeper. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. Sasha Vezenkov, I think, is a guy that he's gonna turn a lot
Yeah,
of heads.
he looks good, man. He looks
He
good.
is so dirty.
He looks good.
Oh man, you ever
He's
heard
got
it,
the full
brother?
package.
Watch out! Watch out!
Watch out for that roll,
I
brother.
love you, Red Velvet, but man, watch out!
Red Velvet. Red Velvet's a crazy ass nickname, bro.
No, you know what's even crazier? Okay, do you know what his other nickname is?
What?
I'll give you. He's from Atlanta, so kind of, or not. He's from, but remember you played there.
Yeah.
Considering
What they call him?
Kayvon,
Oh.
bro.
Oh my god.
Uh, anyways, yeah, this is gonna be another year where I think Sacramento is gonna cement themselves as back into that upper echelon of NBA basketball for sure, which is great to see because I mean, 20 plus years without any kind of success is crazy. Now that they're kind of getting back into it, you want to see it continue. All
Let's
right,
put the Clippers in there and the solid playoff team.
yeah,
I think they're
there's
they
nothing wrong
playoffs.
with it. I mean, if they
Yeah.
do, if the trade does happen,
Even more.
yeah. But until then, same old, same old.
You were about to click on the Pacers. They're my 5th seed this year in the East.
Yes, sir, my brother. That's what I'm thinking
Yeah.
too. I mean,
They're my 5th seed. They're my 5th
let's
seed this
just
year.
let me hold it up here.
I would even say I would plug them in at the 4th seed, and I think Philly falls at 5.
Yeah, because here's what they're working with. So Tyrese, Benedict, Bruce Brown, Obi, Miles, TJ McConnell, Andrew Nemhard, Buddy Hield, depending on where he ends up going or if he gets moved at all, because it seems like he's like almost buying in a little bit into that role. Jarris Walker, and then if you want to throw in, you still got Jalen Smith, Isaiah Jackson, Jordan Wara, Aaron Neesmith. There's a lot of talent on that team. Main thing for me, I mean, I've been saying it since you got drafted. Jarris Walker and Miles Turner is going to be a motherfucker to deal with on the defensive end. So nasty.
Bruce Brown is their highest paid player. That's crazy.
Oh yeah,
this season.
Is this Reese's extension kicking next year?
Yeah, next year. Because he's still on his rookie. He's still on his rookie deal.
Miles Turner's extension was really weird last year too. Do you remember? Like, I think he signed for like 30 a year.
Yeah.
And then they like converted it to where he got 12 up front for this year, so that he got paid for that 30 or whatever. That was.
Yeah, so basically it's also to give them salary cap space, flexibility, but it does hurt their books, like if we talk about financial implications. But again, this team doesn't have a massive cap space hit, so they can afford that a little bit. Unless the team they literally dropped the Brinks truck in front of Miles Turner's house.
Yeah.
So
definitely
I think
deserved
Indiana.
it too.
Yeah, he was one of the best centers last year, and we were talking about him being in the trade block for so long.
Definitely backed it up for sure. But yeah, I like Indiana this year. They're going to be so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
Let's throw, I think the Mavs are for sure going to be in that upper echelon of the top 6. I mean,
Agreed.
full year when you have like undoubtedly the most talented backcourt in the world. Shout out to who's that dude that everybody was trolling, but then ended up being proven right. But yeah, I think that and their team they're another team that's like solid and deep and everything. I think Derek Lively's a rookie that is what if I'm looking at guys that can make an impact right away, he's up there. Jaden Hardy, you could throw him into like that little 6-man conversation as well. He's nasty. And even that, we still got guys like Seth Curry. Omax is a guy I think is probably going to play a lot of G League this year, but could still be really good. And just
Grant
overall,
Williams,
their team is very solid.
Yeah, I like Grant Williams on this team. I think his addition is going to be really, really important on both ends. Spread the floor. I think they missed a lot of what DFS was last year, And having Grant Williams kind of fill that. I'm not saying he can do it as well as DFS, but I think Grant Williams is going to be important for them as a glue connector.
Definitely. I think if
I'd,
anything though, they're only really lacking like a wing stopper. I
yeah.
think you got
Oh,
a
yeah.
guy
I
like
definitely want to
Omax
put
that could
Grant as a
grow into
stopper.
that, but
Yeah.
they need some guy to defend like the McCalls of the world and the Bronze and the threes essentially. But yeah,
I'd put Magic in the lottery for me.
you don't think they could take that step up?
I mean, I would say lottery play-in,
Yeah,
but I just think there's a log jam at several positions for them that they've got to figure out. Like the wings are filled because you got to talk about Jonathan Isaac and Wagner and what that situation looks like with their bigs, and then obviously they've got 17 point guards on that team, man. So they got to figure that situation out because
definitely.
you're not utilizing the best of your roster to your ability. So I'm excited to see what Fultz does. I think Fultz is gonna be great this year. I think he's gonna have a really nice year.
Franz is another guy. I think he's going to take even more of a step. Franz
Yeah,
right now,
dude.
like if we look 5 years from now, I think he's the best like Robin.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think he could develop into a Batman. I
Mm,
think he's that good. I think he's
yeah.
got the package and the size. Like the dude's 6'10", no?
I think he's more listed 6'9", but same
Yeah,
old, same old.
yeah. And he's got like the thing is like he's got a really good playmaking package on the top of the fact that he's already a solid shot creator for his age. So I mean, I like Wagner. I think he's a sleeper in that draft too, man.
Oh yeah, I think if you, oh man, maybe I'll, but keep talking. Yeah,
It's tough to redraft
Franz is
that one
nasty.
because I think you keep that almost as is, right? So one was Cade, two was Mobley, right?
I believe so. Yeah, let me.
And who was third? Third was Suggs, no? No, third was no. Suggs was not third. Who was third?
Oh no, no, this is the
Wow.
Jalen. So it's Cade, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley,
Jalen Green,
Scotty,
right.
Suggs, Giddy,
Jalen Green falls out of the top five,
Kaminga,
in my opinion.
Franz. Out of the top five?
Yeah.
So
I'm
you,
taking Wagner, I'm taking Cade, I'm taking um Giddy, I'm taking Scotty, and who else am I missing?
you say Evan?
Yeah, I didn't say Evan. I take those five guys over Jalen Green. Sorry, so
Yeah. When you put it
Cade,
like that,
Scotty, Mobley, Giddy, and what did I just? Oh, Jesus Christ, man!
for
I'm having
me,
brain
I think it
farts.
would still be Cade number one. I think you would move Evan up to number two, Scotty
Yep.
three. I think Franz would be fourth.
I think Franz 4 and Giddy 5.
Yeah, yeah. But I feel like Green or Giddy is like either way, kind of depending on what you want for your team.
Uh, I'm
You
taking Giddy
think
every day.
Giddy's the big of a gap?
Yeah, I think so. Playmaking ability at 6'9". I think I think what he has in terms of a package is more impactful for any winning team versus Jalen Green being a pure scorer and a
Mm-hmm.
high volume guy, right? So, I mean, Jalen Green, in my opinion, falls under the same molds as a guy like Jordan Clarkson. He falls under the same mold as like a Jordan Poole. And Green is good and Poole is good. Those kind of guys are good, but they're limited in what their contribution is. So
Mm-hmm.
unless Jalen Green develops a different part of his game outside of being taking 20 shots and making 9 of them.
And pipe it as homies.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So pause.
They cut his homie though. Josh Christopher.
Yeah, unfortunately. Josh Christopher was solid though, man.
I thought he was gonna. I think he could carve out a role stop. Where is he even now? Utah? I think he's somewhere on a two way.
Let's take a look.
Yeah. When you put it like that, I definitely agree. I think
Yeah,
Giddy's definitely
Utah.
more versatile. Utah?
Yeah.
Good for him. But yeah, Franz is just that guy.
Franz is that guy.
Him and Paulo. Hey, I remember. I think him, Paulo, and Franz at the peak of their powers. is going to be, well, granted, we still don't really know what they look like, but how it's
Yeah.
looking right now, I would take the Magic's 2 over the Jays. Peak for peak, I think when we're looking at it,
I don't know,
especially
man.
especially if they
Jason
don't
Tatum
win
is an
this year.
MVP candidate, and
You don't think
Jalen
Paulo
Brown
could
is
get
a.
up to there?
I think is a maybe for me
I
right
think
now.
Paulo could for sure end up being an MVP one day, man.
I think Franz might end up being the better player than Bankero.
True, but I still think the system's definitely going to be more around Paulo. But
I
Franz is
mean, that's
definitely going to be
fair.
able to get his. Definitely.
They'll be fun to watch, regardless. I think that having those two
Yeah.
together, the Magic are very lucky. I just think they've got to figure some stuff out and need some growing to do still.
Yeah. They just need to. They just need to. They're like. This could be their Thunder year, how the Thunder were last year. I think.
Yeah.
Where, like, you have a lot of questions, and this is the year where you really like cement everything.
I agree.
I want to say playing, but yeah, I think lottery's more likely. While we're at it, you know, Rockets cool, Şengün cool, Jalen Green cool, Freddie cool, but definitely a playing team. Where are you feeling with Utah?
I got them in the lottery plan.
What do you
If
think is
there's a middle tier, I'd probably put in lottery because I'm just looking at the three remaining teams. Those three guys are play-in / playoff teams.
Yeah, I think Utah definitely benefited from like the inconsistencies with Jaw as well as like the Zion injuries. But I think Utah's going to be another team where they're going to be very fun to watch, especially if it gets to the point where they gotta play their young guys because it's like out of reach. I mean, Keontae George is looking like one of the ones.
Yeah,
Taylor Hendricks is a guy we didn't really get to see through the summer league and all that, but he's another guy that I think is like very solid. I would see him usurping John Collins this year for sure, evidently. But they just got a lot of. They're pooling their talent. They're taking the assets they got from the two trades and they're starting to like have that makeup of a team that's like going to get back up to like how the Utah Jazz have been for the past few years, where it's like a top tier team in the West. But it's just if they can like get over that hump and really turn it into playoff success for sure.
100%.
Where are you feeling with the Grizzlies?
I've got him in the plan just because of the fact that Jaw's missing 35 games. I know I saw the ESPN rankings that they're rated number one purely because outside of Jaw, like that roster is still really good.
Yeah, that's a really good
But
team.
it's a really good team. It's just, man, I'm looking at this. If anything, I would almost trade Memphis out of for Dallas.
I can see
But
that.
for me, it's so hard to have Memphis in there, considering the fact that Jaw is such a big part of what they do, and he's obviously their best player. He's their superstar guy, and you won't have him for 35 games, right? And despite having Marcus Smart, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson, and all the pieces that they do, that's a big hole to fill, right? That's a big gap. So, right now, I just don't see it for them, at least this season. They might prove me wrong. They might end up being a top four team and pushing one of these other teams out just purely because it's such a competitive conference, and sometimes it might just be who had their night. I think the Western Conference this year is going to come down to the very last game of the year, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely looking that way, man. It's so deep as all. But I agree. I think the whole genesis of if they end up being either the play-in or this playoff team is how those 35 games go. I think if they're
Yeah,
able to remain like around or slightly above 500, and you
they
put
got a
Jaw back
chance.
into that, yeah, definitely got a chance. But then only concern I think is when you get to those late game moments, there isn't really a guy who has that moxie to be like a last shot kind of guy. De facto it's probably gonna go to Bain or Jaren Jackson Jr. However you're feeling. But I think if anything, if I'm Taylor Jenkins and if I'm looking at like the schedule we have without Jaw, I'm really gonna use that to install confidence into Bane and Jaren Jackson as like they need to be cemented that these are the two like Robins essentially.
Yeah.
Because I think it's well, Jaren Jackson's already somewhat cemented, but seeing him kind of I think take a bigger role would be really great for him. But man, people don't be talking nice about Desmond Bane, man. I love Desmond Bane's
Yeah.
game honestly because you know negative wingspan, but he's a hell of a shooter and he's not a slouch on defense. I think he's pretty solid there, but seeing
He's
those
also
two
really
really
good at
like
attacking the rim too. Like I
yeah, he
think
puts a
he's got
lot of
some really
pressure
good
on it,
stuff.
definitely.
Yeah.
But I think more than anything is like his ability to stretch the floor is perfect alongside a guy like Jaw. But then I just want to see them establish like their identity and use those like 35 games to really get guys like Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. going for sure. Santi Aldama is a guy I'm looking at to where if there's like a breakout candidate, he's definitely up there. Been playing a lot of
Hmm.
like good basketball last year and even in the World Cup. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, how these 35 games goes is gonna set the tone for the whole season.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, last two. Where you putting the New Orleans Freaks? I mean
Uh,
Pelicans at.
I got the freaks in the play-in. I got the freaks in the play-in, and I got Minnesota in the blow it up.
Really?
Yeah. I. Uh,
Okay. Before we get into, let's talk about the Pelicans.
yeah. I think this is a talented roster and Zion's healthy. I think they're also in the playoff, solid playoff slash play in conversation. I mean, they were really good before all the injuries happened, right? So,
Hmm.
I think they're going to be in the conversation. Do I think they're going to be fighting for a top four seed? I don't think so. I think their ceiling is probably a fifth seed. Floor is probably a nine. So
Hmm.
I mean, they'll be an interesting all season long. Um, yeah, I think the Pelicans are going to be a fun team to watch too.
Do you
I
think
think
that's
Zion's
because you think
resurgence
there's
is
going to
good.
be evidently like the long stretch without Zion?
Not necessarily. I just think that in terms of their top end talent, Zion is great, and we haven't seen him in a full stretch. But even if I feel like they're going to be around for 65 plus games, I just don't see them being a better team than any other team we've slotted in the first two tiers.
Hmm. Yeah, I would.
So
It's hard for them to compete against like a Lakers or a Nuggets that have a lot of size because I mean, outside of Jonas and Zion, there isn't really that much there. And then plus, I mean, I forgot they're going without like Trey Murphy for the first bit of the season, and he was a big part of that team.
yeah,
But I'm definitely curious to see how it plays out. I want to see how a guy like Jordan Hawkins fits into that system. I think he fits alongside like their guys to where he can stretch the floor really well. He's a good defender, but ooh, playing at first I was like definitely don't see that happening, but looking at the fact that you're gonna evidently have a stretch where you go without Zion, you have Jonas who's solid, but he tends to get played off the court. There's gonna be a lot of times where they lose. I think solely based on size.
yeah, it's tough, man. This team again, if they're Memphis and Pelicans, I would switch out for Dallas if anything. As solid playoff
Okay, you could do
teams.
that.
Just considering, I mean, just take a look at that and then see, because even I'm trying to calculate and see. Okay, so who we got? We got Denver, Phoenix, Golden State, Lakers. That's four right there. That's the top four. We got the Kings, the Clippers. We got Memphis and Thunder. That's your top eight. And then we're looking at the play-in. There's two spots left, right? And so we're talking about that being between San Antonio, New Orleans, Dallas, and Utah. I think Utah was kind of like in between for us. So that's 11 teams. And I think this conference is probably a 12 deep team. I would say Houston might be in that conversation too, considering how good, Fred and Dylan make them. The internal improvement of Sengun and Jabari Smith, Jalen Green. Then obviously that team actually has quite a solid bench. So in terms of young guys, obviously Amon Thompson, boom, like he's going to be a massive contributor for them this season. So it'll be interesting to see how they play out overall. But again, this is a 12 deep conference versus the East. And so there's going to be so much jockeying for position that I can't see New Orleans being very good, like a 12, 13. I forget about Minnesota, but the reason I have Minnesota in the blow it up is I just don't think I just don't see it, man. So
I think it comes down to what Ant does this year. I think he's the
I think
guy
he's
I
over.
think he could you think we're gonna say over?
Yeah,
Really?
I think he's being overrated right now.
Really? I think he can
Yeah,
break into like that 26, 27 a game this year.
I mean that's great.
But I don't think he's even Michael Jordan or anything, but
Yeah, but
I,
I mean like 26 and 27. He's a great scorer. But Bradley Beal put 30 points on a terrible team too.
true, but you
And
pair
I'm
that
not.
with Jaden McDaniels, who's evolved
And
into one of the
yeah,
better
and
wing
Cat
defenders.
and Rudy, but it's
Cat.
like I just don't
I think
see the connectivity.
you gotta see how they're looking at in December, because I think
Yeah,
that's when, assuming, because think about last year, they looked like, I'll give it to you, when the two bigs were on the floor, looked pretty bad. But when you
yeah,
saw Cat go down, once you had like more conventional style, it looked okay. And then when you put Cat and them back into it, it still looked okay. But I think I want to hopefully, if everything goes right, no major injuries, I think they could figure something out. Because by blow it up, I would think that they would just move off of like a Rudy. But I think the only thing preventing them from that is because there's nobody that wants to take on that contract. So I think it's like,
yeah.
I
If
can
there's
see what
anybody
you're
that
saying
gets
for
traded, I
blow
think
it
it's
up.
Cat.
I would think so too, but it's also like, what's the return looking like on that?
It depends what they're looking for, right? I think if this team is genuinely trying to blow it up, I think there's some really good teams that have draft capital could do it. Like if you were to slot Cat into the Oklahoma City Thunder, like damn.
Oh, hey, listen here, Cat or Giddy?
See, that's actually yeah, with some
That could
draft
be,
capital, and
that could
then
be a
you
thing.
put Giddy in there as your point guard because that's a hole that they have, right? And you put him alongside Anthony Edwards. You build around him with Jaden McDaniels,
Ooh, Giddy. Oh man, Giddy and
SGA,
ooh,
Chet, Cat, Lou Dort,
that
Jalen
that's a
Williams.
nasty team. I can't lie. Ooh, dang. Man, I was like gonna fight you on like the whole blown up thing, but that idea, if that, I wonder where else would they get the money though, is probably the thing too though. Cause who?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, again, we'd have to look at what the salary cap implications are, right? I believe matching has to be 75. Someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have to match. If your team that's under the salary cap, I believe you have to match at least 75%. So,
And nobody on that team's really making money outside of Shea, and maybe like Bertans
Bertans.
is still making like 17.
So you could probably fill that a little bit. Again, 75%. So if we were to do some calculations, add Giddy's contract onto that, might be able to make it work. I don't know. I mean, I'm not Bobby Marks from ESPN, so I can't really cut the numbers down to really specifics
Mm.
and trade details. But I mean, it's the idea. It's the idea that Cat, I think, probably there's somebody who's not going to belong in this team. If it were me, it's obviously Rudy. But given the stature of his, deal and like the reputation around him in terms of his ability to make an impact. Like you got to surround him with shooting, like Utah did. So it's a whole different thing. I think Minnesota's not good enough to win anything anytime soon, nor do I think they're bad enough to be a lottery team. So I think that works against their favor, and they don't have draft capital, right? They
Mm.
gave it all up trading for Rudy. They traded for the wrong Utah Jazz guy.
For sure, for sure.
So I mean, yeah, like this is where I think Minnesota is the absolute well, them in Chicago. I think they're the absolute definition of like mid. Like literally mid. Like, dude,
Dang.
these teams are stuck in the water, man. They can't get out, but they're not terrible enough to just drown. That's the thing. Like they're just there. They're just floating on water right now. It's yeah, I'm
Dang.
going in on these guys.
Yeah,
Like
for
Minnesota's
real.
not a team like listen, I have Jaden McDaniels on my fantasy team, so I hope he goes off. And I hope he's a bright spot for them. I just don't see it with this roster. It doesn't make sense to me. I really like Anthony Edwards, but one man cannot solve all problems in the world. And Minnesota has 99% of them in the NBA.
Oh, damn. Hey, I
Sorry,
respect
Minnesota
that.
fans are gonna hate me, bro. I'm sorry. This is just my honest opinion. I just don't like that team. I just don't like that roster. I just don't think it makes sense. I think they gave up way too much for Rudy. They screwed themselves out of a really solid future with Anthony Edwards of being able to build a foundation around him. When they realized that Anthony Edwards is the guy they should be investing in, I think they should have already made a deal for Cat in the summer. So I don't know what they're saying. Like, man, Cat is out here talking like, man, I'm fully healthy, and like, brother, you're fully healthy for a 9 seed.
Oh, man, you're going. I just have no pushback because I was like, dang. I
It's the
really wanted
Chicago
to,
Bulls of
like,
the West.
oh,
Come on.
damn.
Like, they have a bright spot at least, but
They,
in
they got a
Anthony
few.
Edwards
They
and
got a few bright spots.
Jaden, yeah, I
Nas
got two.
Reed. I think
Oh,
Leonard
Nas Reed
Miller could
actually.
be
So
really good
I
for
like,
them.
yeah, Leonard Miller. I like Leonard Miller. Yeah, you're right. You're right. They're not as bad as Chicago, but again, like, who else are you gonna build around those guys if you got no picks?
Or what if I wonder if you can do a swap for Cat and DeJounte?
See, that would make sense. We were talking about this last year. I
Yeah,
said they should have done
I
that
thought that
trade.
was supposed to happen.
That absolutely should have happened because then I really like DeJounte's fit. That on I'd like DeJounte's fit on the Timberwolves. That makes them a much better team on paper, connectivity wise. I I feel like that, and I think DeJounte as a lead guard with the ball in his hands more outside of Trey, I think allows him to explore his ability to play make with actual options around him.
Mm.
Versus what he had in San Antonio. The dude was putting up a triple double almost every night, but he was doing that with like two and a half offensive options, man. Like now, if you were to play with Ant Edwards and Cat and Jaden McDaniels and Nas Reed, like that's like. Sorry, I said Cat. I meant Rudy Gobert, but like Nas Reed could play alongside Gobert because he can hit the three.
Shoot, yeah, dang. I
There's
thought it was
options,
gonna have
man. Trade
more.
Cat.
Yeah.
That's DeMar
Yo,
DeRozan
honestly,
of the
yeah.
Western
Fuck it.
Conference.
They need to shake something up.
They need to, yeah, they need to do something, brother. I mean, and they made the wrong shakeup for the wrong Utah Jazz player. God damn, they traded all their eggs in the basket for a Hershey's chocolate bar.
Oh, oh no.
Damn,
All right.
it hurt.
Well,
Yeah.
as y'all can see, this is what our tier list is looking like. Before we get off here, though, Ruben, bro, fuck it, let's get into it. What are some of your other hot takes for this upcoming season?
Oh, damn, you put me on the spot. I gotta think really hard right now because I did not think about any hot takes for this year. I
I'll
know
throw
you
mine.
got some.
My biggest is that I think the Spurs are going to be a solid play-in team. Wemby's
Okay.
definitely going to lead them to greatness. What else is there? Ooh, man, what else to write down? Oh, I think Jordan Poole will be the Bradley Beal and average like 30 a game, but it's obviously
Oh
not going
yeah.
to lead to anything.
I don't think that's a hot take, but I think that's a very yeah. I think it's yeah.
As much as I think the Nets are a lottery bound team, I do think that if everything went perfectly, if everybody's back to where they should be, they're a team I think could get into the playoffs. Whether it's through the play in or top six, I think they can make some noise there.
I agree. Yes, I think Brooklyn very much is a fun team to watch. Thinking about them, Ben Simmons, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Spencer Dinwiddie, Nick Claxton. Like that's actually a really nice roster.
Cam Thomas.
Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Thomas. That'll be fun to watch. That a lot of defensive versatility. Oh my god! Like playing against that team, it's not going to be fun. I think that's the one team that I think that team would give a team like the Phoenix Suns a lot of problems.
They're going to
just
be
from perimeter
the
defense.
Brooklyn Nets. I think are the biggest trap game for any team that's like competitive.
I think they're going to be a trap game all season long because I think this team is just too good to simply be in the lottery.
Man, this just proves why we need expansion, man. There's so much talent. Each team's like at least 10, maybe even 12 deep.
And let's get rid of
that.
the. I'm for the playoff seeding of 1 to 16. Personally,
I think the
I'm
only
for
thing with that though is that you have the potential to have like an all like West or all East thing.
I think they've got to even up the schedules. I think play less games throughout the year, drop it from 82 to 65 or something. Play even amount of games against every team in the league. I think if you were to do that, right, that'd be 60 games. And then you could still have like regions, like separate out the divisions, make it regions, play an extra game against 5 teams in the four teams in your region, right? And that's like what 64 games, right? Something like that. Make
Yeah.
it 1 to 16. Go to a 2-3-2, right? So you can limit the travel, right? Instead of doing 2-2-1-1-1, do 2-3-2. Limit the travel. I just think that kind of shakeup proves also that conferences really limit the ability for it to have a more competitive playoffs
Mm.
because it's gonna sound like another hater thing, but like nobody wants to see the Atlanta Hawks in the playoffs when you could have seen the Pelicans, you could have seen the Mavericks, you could have seen just better teams with better talent compete at the highest level, right? I'd rather have that. Even if it is like out of the 16 teams, there's 12 of them from the Western Conference, or like 10 of them in the Western Conference, and there's 6 of them in the East, then that's just you're going the best team to the 16th best team. I just think it's more of a finite conversation versus like conferences.
Mm.
That's my hot take, I guess.
That's not bad. I like that.
I think Warriors. I will. Haha. Here we go. I got my hot take. I was gonna say Warriors, but actually I'm taking it back only because I saw Chris CP's quote. I think Indiana wins the in-season tournament.
That's a good
Just
take.
because I think there's so much that they're playing for. They were a very good team. I like them because, like, I just for some reason I got a feeling it isn't
Yeah, I
necessarily
do
like
think
an
a middle of the
analytical thing.
pack team is gonna win.
Yeah, I think it's them. I think it's a team like the Thunder have a really good shot at winning it. Um,
Oh, the Thunder makes sense because if you get to the point where it's like not really a meaningless game, but it's like you want to rest your guys, they got a lot of talent they could go to still.
exactly. I could see a team like the Clippers winning it. I could see a team like um, the Cavs winning it. You know, so I wouldn't say like the Cavs are middle of the pack, but I think they're that one contending team that is going to try and play every game versus the Bostons and the Milwaukee's who could care less about it, the LA who could care less about it, the Warriors who could care less about it. Denver, Jokic is always looking at horses, man. So
For real.
yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. That's my
Nice.
hot take. We'll have some more when the season starts next week.
For sure. I'm excited for this. Man, what is it?
No East games on the opening night though, eh?
Yeah, wait. It's LA and
In
Denver?
Phoenix.
LA and Phoenix and
Or Denver and the Goldens, and I think Denver and Warriors, or no? I think it's the other way around. Who's on opening night? Let's take a look really quickly.
yeah.
I'm opening it up. So opening night, yeah, 4:30 our time, LA and Denver, and then Phoenix and Golden State.
That's a 7 o'clock game here, right?
That's the 7 o'clock game. I'm excited.
Yeah.
That's gonna be
That's gonna be
that's
a
gonna be
solid
awesome.
game.
Can't wait.
Oh man. Excited.
Ugh.
Well,
Hey, you guys just signed Marquise Bolden to a 2-way deal.
hey, that's that guy right there.
Yeah,
But
2-way
alrighty,
deal.
y'all. This has been another episode of the Black Top Podcast. We appreciate y'all listening in. Any last things to say, Ruben?
Don't catch the flu, guys. Just take care of yourselves because
Mm,
everybody around me is getting sick. My coworkers are getting sick, so take care of yourselves.
for
Flu
sure.
season.
With that, stay safe, stay blessed. We'll see y'all soon.
Back shots, back shots.
Oh!